Good morning, family and friends. Jehovah Jireh, God our provider. God will provide our every need. We're still following Abraham's compliance to God's command to him in the 22nd chapter of Genesis to take his only son Isaac up to Mount Moriah and offer him as a sacrifice unto God. In verses 11 through 14, we find God's provision is transacted on Mount Moriah. Here is Abraham, having now bound his son Isaac to the altar. The wood is stacked, the fire is on the torch, and he now has his knife hovering in the air. And as he raises his hand, an angel of the Lord cries out, "Abraham, Abraham." Once again, Abraham responds as the servant that he is, as he's responded earlier when God called his name, "Here I am." And then Abraham breathes a sigh, a huge sigh of relief as he hears these words, "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him." The King James Version says, "Abraham, stay thy hand. Don't move your hand. Don't strike your son Isaac. God is calling you." So even in the midst of God having us to offer a sacrificial lamb, make a sacrifice in our life, he calls us. And in that provision, God lays out his plan based on our obedience. And he says, "Now I know that you fear the Lord." Fear is not as we know it here. It is, I know that you respect and love God so much until you're going to be obedient unto him. And the fear comes in knowing the consequences of not obeying what God has told us to do. And it says, "I know you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son, the son that I provided to you as a blessing, the son that was going to be the foundation of the nations." Abraham had passed the test, but he still needed to complete the sacrifice. So just passing the test is not enough. We still have to follow through with what God has told us. And so God himself makes a provision for the task to be completed in the manner in which he intended. So in verse 13, Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. The provision is transacted. Jehovah Jireh. God's timing is incredible, isn't it? God has a way, as the old folks say, he may not come when you want him, but he is always on time. That day, some shepherd must have lost his sheep, and somehow, it wandered to the exact spot that Abraham could see it. Notice also that it was caught by its horns. It wasn't bloody, it was not bruised, because the sacrifice had to be perfect. According to Leviticus 22 and 11, it could not have any blemish or defect to be acceptable to God. Abraham went over and got the ram and killed it, and he lit the fire to complete his worship. Now sacrifice has turned to worship because of God's provision. According to Genesis 22 and 13, Abraham offered up this lamb instead of his son. The ram took the place of Isaac. reminds us of something? It was a substitute offering. Abraham passed the test, and as a result, he called that place, "The Lord will provide." This is the name Jehovah Jireh. At just the right time, God came through for Abraham. At just the right time, God will and has come through for you and I, and we should turn those into moments of worship. Jehovah Jireh. He is a provider, and he always supplies the right thing at the right time and in the right place and in the right context. He is never late. He is seldom early, and he certainly does not cater to our timeline. God tests us to grow our faith, to keep us focused, and to make us more faithful and fruitful. But I declare, even in the midst of the test, know that God himself will provide. God is a provider. Jehovah Jireh. I don't know what your substitute sacrifice has been, what's been your ram in the bush, but acknowledge God in all your ways. For he hath provided, and he is still in the providing business. God is Jehovah Jireh. God bless and keep you is our prayer. And always, should you have any questions, please feel free to inbox me. God bless you.